Hey there, Bram, Spiero here. Buy and hold fundamentals, Saturday summary. We're at the end of looking at Carmel, Indiana. And what can we say? Well, let's look at the numbers, shall we? So if we look at the 340 odd places that we looked at, and you'll remember that about halfway through we started filtering out anything over 300,000, but still, on average, properties here cost close to $600,000. The rent, well, sort of the rent that we were assuming is an average of $4,000. Cash flow is a whopping $430 negative, and your cash on cash return is on average really below zero. It's on a negative 3%. And this is the average rent ratio which we ran into, which is less than 1%. So, generally speaking, not a good place to invest, seeing as it's basically too expensive. Most people are owners. There isn't a real rent. Whatchamacallit? There's no culture for renting, at least in this area, probably because it's just an upper class suburb, and that's not what's happening there. Most people are buying. If we look at the ones that did sort of pass our muster, and we were interested in looking at, which were the ones that are under 300,000. And are actually cash flowing. Even when we look at those, the average price comes out at $170,000. You're gonna have just around 1% on the rent ratio, which is okay. Your cash flow is close to $100, which is also okay. But your cash on cash return is only 2%. And even if we calculate in the effects of having your tenants pay down 75% of the value of the property and building up your equity and all the tax advantages, that's still a very low return on your investment. You can get that in something, let's assume with all those things, it's 5% instead of 2%. You could still get that kind of return in a much more conservative and less riskier investment type. So, not really interesting. What it does allow us to sort of do is something else I like to do is, okay, if those are the averages, what kind of anomaly would I have to find in that market to make it interesting? Where my assumption is that I don't want to invest more than $30,000, meaning I'm looking to buy a place for around $100,000, where 75% of it is financed, and then I'm looking to make at least $100 cash flow a month, and I'm looking to make at least 10% cash on cash return. And once I do that, then it becomes interesting, even in a market like Carmel, Indiana. And in order to do that, what is it that I want, right? So you can play around with different data points. You can play around with the purchase price. So if I was saying 100,000, let's put in 100,000. And if the rent ratio is really 1%, then 1% is not going to get us there, right? We're in the negative. All the rest, I've taken the tax rate, which is sort of representative of what you'd find there. So that isn't going to crack it. But what if I raise the rent to $1,600 is 1.6%. Let's do it 1.5%, which would be $1,500. With $1,500, you're almost there, right? So $1,550. $1,550 on a property you're paying $100,000 for, it might be worth $150,000, and that's another way that you can make money from the get-go, is if you buy under market rate. Find a reason to have someone sell you their house below market value because they're trying to get rid of it quickly, because they're moving and they need to sell their house. They're having trouble paying their mortgages. Whatever it is, they're not aware of what the market price is. Whatever it is, they're trying to get rid of their property. You can solve something for them, meaning you can take it off of their hands. And as arbitrage, you're getting a property under market value. That's one of the ways to make money. So if you can buy like if the average rent ratio is really 1%, you can buy a $150,000 property for around $100,000. In that case, compared to your purchase price, your rent ratio is now 1.5. You're hitting your 10% cash on cash. You're making your $100 a month. You're actually making $250 a month in cash flow. All of these things are sort of matching up, which is what you need to do in order to make money. Again, if you're going to keep on just doing everything that everybody else is doing, you're going to get the same results. And all you really, really need to do is spend enough time to understand a particular market. And once you've understood enough markets, things will start coming naturally to you. But it's finding out what it is that you have to find. Now, you might spend a whole year looking at Carmel, Indiana, and not find a single place that you can buy for $100,000 that's worth $150,000. But keep your eyes open here, keep your eyes open in other places, and something's going to pop up, and it's really, really going to work. So that's it for today's Saturday summary. We'll be back on Monday to start with a new market. I'm very excited looking at that. Curious what I'll find out about that market and what we'll learn there. Looking forward to seeing you there. Take care.